JJ, did you know today was National Senior Citizens Day?
Yeah, I did. I planned on celebrating, but I pulled my hamstring getting out of bed. Womp, womp. Oh, some people will tell you to play it safe. We're here to tell you to go all out. Welcome to the All-Out Blitz. I'm your host, J.J. Wenner, and I am joined by the other half of this dastardly duo, Doug Orth. How you doing, buddy?
I am well, thank you.
All right, so last week, Doug unveiled his DDP, Doug's draft plan, and walked us through how to attack our drafts from all angles. And tonight, we're going to force Doug to make some decisions and show us actually how to execute the plan. To do this, we are going to conduct 3 mock drafts, one from an early draft slot, one from the middle, and one from the late slots. Now, for your convenience, we're going to bookmark the show into 3 sections to help you find the exact information you need to dominate your drafts. In fact, play this on the way to your draft, and you'll be extra prepared. So, Doug is going to be utilizing his PPR big board for these drafts, which can be found on FF Today. And there it is, FF Today. And we're going to be doing a PPR draft starting 1 QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 flex with 5 bench spots. Doug, how are we feeling?
Psyched, geeked, and ready to go.
Geeked. I like that. I'm a little geeked out too. All right. Well, let's do some mocking. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do some
mocking. All right.
Let's do some mocking. All right. We are going to be using Sleeper. And for this first one, Doug, we are picking out of slot 2. So let's hit start and see what happens. All right.
I'd like to say I'm surprised. My most recent big board, of course, I just took CeeDee Lamb out of there. My most recent big board has Breece Hall at the top. And I'm going to be confronted with this decision. One draft spot I know for my upcoming high-stakes drafts, I was fortunate enough to pull the 1 pick in that draft. And this is something I want to make clear early on. If you're going to be a volume drafter like I am, do pick multiple guys. Do not, if you have the chance to get Christian McCaffrey at 102, I would highly recommend it, because the chances are you're going to get Breece Hall, Bijan in your other drafts are pretty decent. So for the sake of this exercise, I would be a fool to pass on McCaffrey, knowing that I'm probably going to get Hall and Robinson in later drafts. So my pick here, I'm going contrary to my big board right now. And I want to say one other thing before I make the pick, is that the way I have it set up here is I pretend, or I kind of have in my mind when I put out this big board, that you're drafting for 1 draft. But like I said, be more of a volume drafter. I want to spread my risk around. So anyway, I'm going McCaffrey with this pick.
All right. So let's go back to the board, and we will make the pick of CMC. All right. Now we are flying through the draft. We're seeing a lot of the big names go off the board. So we've already seen CMC, Breece Hall, Gibbs is gone, Bijan, Barkley, Taylor, Etienne. A lot of running backs are going off the board. Now, we completely understand that using a mock draft of simulator of any kind, you're not going to get 100% accuracy. It is very difficult to find 11 people just to sit around on a Wednesday evening to do a mock draft who will make picks in a timely fashion. So since Doug and I were going with 3 mocks in one evening, we decided just to use Sleeper and allow it to auto draft. So looking at this, you see a lot of wide receivers also went off the board. makes me a little bit nervous. Wow, that top talent really flew off, Doug.
It did.
So I don't know. I don't know what Doug's going to do. Now, if I went with CMC, I would generally come back with a wide receiver. But having been indoctrinated onto Doug's draft plan, I know that I'm going to be working through some of the top names to make sure that I get as high of scores in my first few picks, regardless of position.
Okay, JJ. So I think I'm mostly caught up, and this is doing a show like this and being on one of the ends makes it tough because then now you're trying to catch up to 18 or 20 picks in like a minute or whatever. This is where I'm going to go more according to my board, and the decision I'm confronted with here is the same one with the draft. I told you I pulled the number one pick. The number two pick is essentially the same as the number one pick in my mind. I know when we talked about the draft plan last week, I think I eyeballed Travis Kelce as a good like 301, 302 target. Yep. Especially given the way that this draft ran through, especially with the positional advantage that McCaffrey gives you, at least assuming that he's going to stay healthy for another year, I'm probably going to back off of running back for until at least the 5th round and maybe even the 7th round. So that leaves me with Kelce as an alternative, but I also like the options that are going to be available in the 5th round area at tight end. So I need to kind of keep up with the Joneses here, and I think I'm going to go back-to-back receivers. So again, going to ignore the board a little bit from a value standpoint, but I want to lock in 2 top 12 receivers at least on my board. So I'm going Cooper Kupp and Drake London.
Well, you only get one of those 2 picks because you're not in the 1-1.
You're right. You're right. I'm assuming that's my bad.
So let's hope
Cooper Kupp.
Take Kupp first.
And even still, if London doesn't make it back to me, I have a pretty good idea where I'm going with this.
So you want to take Kupp first?
Yeah, Cooper Kupp first.
All right. So we're taking Cooper Kupp. And we see Josh Allen and Josh Jacobs come off the board.
Ooh.
I guess we should put the draft board up. I apologize, trying to navigate a few different things at once.
Wow.
We're going to switch to London.
Wow.
Oh, that's not a real name. Oh, London already went, my friend.
I missed that. Wow. Okay.
London went at 2-6.
Okay, that's the one I missed. I was pretty sure I missed a receiver there. Either way, I'm still looking at my wide receivers 13 through 17 are on the board, and as you can see, I think Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith are separated probably by hundredths of a point here. This is one of those situations I'm going to look at my handy dandy strength of schedule, or actually strength of matchup guide. And I like the fact that Devonta Smith has held up better has been more durable than Jalen Waddle. I think the upside is similar. And as I showed you with the matchups here, this is just more of a feel thing. But as you can see right there at the end, I have, 8 of the last 9 matchups of the season graded as green.
Pretty good.
So again, this is I'm still staying within my first 24 picks here, which I definitely love. And this is the thing about using. I consider this a value board, but it's not. I'm not married to. You go on feel, and this is setting up to be a feel. I want Devonta Smith's consistency go along with Cooper Kupp's upside, and so either way, getting 2 of my top 14 receivers, I'm pretty happy with that. So
Devonta Smith is the pick at 3-2.
Kelsey.
All right. So now Kelsey, who Doug just mentioned, goes off the board. I actually really like what Doug did there, taking Cooper Kupp and Devonta Smith. I almost might have taken Kupp second only because he seems to be falling a lot, but so does Devonta Smith. Both of them I would draft above their ADP because they're great values. I know Brian Drake has been talking about Devonta Smith a lot from his beloved Eagles. So I trust him, and I think Devonta Smith is going to see a lot of volume this year in their new offense. So we actually see a lot of quarterbacks going off the board here in a 1 QB league. I don't know. Depending on who you're drafting with, you might see more quarterbacks go than this, or you might see less. So you sort of have to keep your options open. So we are seeing that Pat Mahomes went off the board, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and CJ Stroud. Now, I know Doug has a few guys that he likes in the 5th round or a little bit later. So we'll see what he does when he gets caught up. We've also had 2 more tight ends go off the board with Kelsey and Trey McBride. I'm a little bit nervous about Trey McBride this year. I know how highly he is ranked by a lot of people, generally in the top 2 tight ends, especially in Dynasty. I'm a little bit nervous about his volume this year. I think Marvin Harrison is going to eat into that a little bit. I think he's very talented. I want to see Trey McBride do great things, but I do have a few concerns. If he's going to be able to maintain his production with another alpha in the house, taking away some of his targets. Some of the other guys who went off, who I am big fans of. I love Mike Evans at his value. I think all he does is get 1,000 yards. Everybody knows that. I'm not going to beat that dead horse. I love Mike Evans. We see Malik Neighbors going off in the 4th round. I would assume by the time most of us are actually drafting in our home leagues, that's going to go up even more, especially if you're on the East Coast. We also saw, yes.
No, I'm not seeing Kyron Williams on the board. Have I missed him?
Kyron Williams did go off the board at 2-3.
All right. All right. I believe I am caught up. All right. So I want you to pay special attention here to, let's say the what do I have there? Seven names highlighted. Especially with the CMC start, I am going to be more inclined to, shall I say, lean receiver heavy. As we talked about, I might not go running back again until the 7th round. However, I am seeing one guy sticking out like a sore thumb. May wait another. I think I can wait another couple picks with him, and I'm talking Kenneth Walker here. I'm seeing 5 receivers, so I don't have to tap the receiver button right now if I don't want to. But I do like the idea of having, at worst, let's play devil's advocate and say that Cooper Kupp and Devonta Smith are high-end wide receiver 2s, just for the sake of argument. Okay, again, with the McCaffrey start, I don't mind having 3 wide receiver 2s because I'm probably going to make up for it somewhere else. And I think I don't expect McLaurin to last much longer. Cooper, the same thing. But these last 3, I think one of those guys is probably going to slip to round 6. We'll see if I'm right about that. And if not, guess what? T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, one of those guys. Worst case scenario, Jackson Smith and Jigba will. So I might actually end up diving down here. This one's a bit of a tough call. You know what? I'm going to ignore what I just said. And I will stick to the value on my board here. I got Terry McLaurin as my 19th receiver. Love the idea that he might be on the receiving end of a lot of RPO passes from Jane Daniels. And then now this pretty well solidifies my receiver setup. And anything that I grab at receiver moving forward is just going to be either flex or just pure value. And I like the idea. I like the possibility that Kenneth Walker is probably going to land in my fall back to me based on the drafts I've done up to this point. So anyway, McLaurin's the pick.
All right, Kincaid and Mixon goes off the board.
Yeah, and, I've started to come around a little bit more on Kincaid. Either way, though, let's get back to my pick and try to move this thing along a little bit more. I told you that I was eyeballing Kenneth Walker as my potential 5th round pick. I thought he would make it back to me. I said before that I was willing to wait until the 7th round to get my 2nd running back. However, I think Walker is going to be something close to a workhorse in Seattle. I haven't, as you can see here, I'm sure you can see here, I have him projected for 212 carries, almost 1,100 yards, and he's been good for 8 or 9 touchdowns in what's been a slow and somewhat outdated offense. I think the receiving floor is going to come up this year, and I think he's going to end up being a very good low-end RB1, so I'm happy to take him here.
All right, so Kenneth Walker goes off the board. All right, so right now we're looking at Doug's team, and Doug is starting with CMC and Kenneth Walker, both of whom he has ranked as top 12 running backs. So he has 2 running back ones, and then he has Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith, and Terry McLaurin. As he said before, even if you're down on Kupp and Smith, they should be wide receiver 2s. Worst case scenario, Doug has 3 wide receiver 2s. Quite possibly he has 2 wide receiver 1s and a wide receiver 2. It's not too bad for your first 5 picks. He should be pretty happy with that. I saw a little grin on his face. So I would assume he is happy. Now, the thing to remind you, like as you're watching Doug go through this process, Doug is contemplating each pick. This isn't something that's automatic. He doesn't necessarily just take the next guy off his list. He looks at his options and he really is deliberate in who he chooses. Make sure that you're doing the same thing. Don't rush your decisions. I mean, you have to make your time clock. I know if you're in a slow draft, people are going to be yelling at you if you lose. You use like 5 minutes of your 8-hour clock, but feel free to use a few minutes of it.
Yeah, how dare you? How dare you?
Yikes. All right. So looking at who went off after Kenneth Walker, we see 3 more tight ends, Kittle, Andrews, and Pitts. So we have a lot of tight ends off the board right now. And then we saw 3 more quarterbacks go off the board, Richardson, Burrow, and Prescott. Now, if I'm going to make any sort of bet here, I would think Doug is going to take a quarterback, but I'm not quite sure. I think one of his next 2 picks will be. That would be my assumption. I am not keeping track of his big board. That is too much for me. That's one step too much. I actually had work today and my brain is already fried. So.
All right, JJ, I am looking. I am not seeing. I'm sure ETN has come off the board. I'm sure he's come off fairly early.
Yes, a long time ago.
And Amari Cooper the same way?
Yes, Cooper is off the board.
Okay.
5-5, last round.
All right. As you can see now, and I'll try to separate this for the viewers at home, so it's there's at least, I'm trying to bold what I have. So, and I do this differently, but for the sake of this show, and I want to try to make this as easy on everybody as possible. So I believe, did I not see Kyle Pitts? If you want to go back
Kyle
to
Pitts, 5-12.
Yeah, I thought he did. Okay. So what I'm thinking here now is I'm probably going to wait on quarterback, especially with our guy, Anthony Richardson, off the board. And I love the value at the position. I don't mind waiting until round 8 or round 9 for that. I do believe, if you want to flip back, I believe Evan Ingram is still available, is he not?
Evan Ingram is available.
So my thinking here is I do want what I consider to be a top 6 or 7 tight end. and I believe he's the last of them available. So, again, I don't mind coming down a tier, especially if I like what's available to me. And we have 2 picks after this pick to get presumably my flex at, and I like what's available at the flex. So if you want to flash back to my board here. So I like one of those 3 receivers. Again, we're talking at worst high end wide receiver 3, and that's going to be in my flex. So go ahead, and if Evan Ingram is still available, make him my pick, and we'll continue on.
All right. So we picked Evan Ingram, and we saw Najee Harris and Rashee Rice. One of your 2 wide receivers came off the board, but leaving both of the others, I believe.
Yes. And again, I'm liking how this is going. This one's, as you can tell by the SSI scores, just like I did with DeMonta Smith and I'm coming up short, Jalen Waddle. I mean, if there's a significant gap between my SSI scores, so let's say 0.5, then that's one thing. We're talking, and I want to be clear to the people that are watching at home. I can adjust a target. This is how close these SSI scores are. I can adjust a target or a carry one way, and it will change the guy from wide receiver 26 to wide receiver 24, depending on how tightly bunched that tier is. With that said, I one thing that keeps ringing in my head is that Brian Callahan wants to use Calvin Ridley in the same way that he used Jamar Chase. And I know they're not the same type of receiver. I'm not expecting Jamar Chase numbers, so let's be clear about that. I think Calvin Ridley was misused in Jacksonville last year, and he was coming off essentially two non-playing seasons, and he still produced. Now, was he consistent? Absolutely not. But I like the idea of having another lead receiver being in my flex. So let's go with Calvin Ridley.
All right. So we are going with Calvin Ridley. Let's take a look at the draft board. All right. So now we have a team after 7 rounds. Doug has drafted 4 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a tight end. He has filled most of his positions, his starting positions, outside of his starting QB. Then as we look through, we see 2 more tight ends came off the board, Bowers and Ferguson. Looking at quarterbacks, we also saw Kyler Murray, who's a great choice this year. I like Kyler Murray a lot. Ending up with him on a lot of my redraft rosters. Jordan Love just got the bag. Not sure if last year was a fluke or not. I'm hoping not. I mean, it's kind of unfair that Green Bay has gone from Favre to Rodgers to Love. Considering as a Jets fan, we've gone from no one to nobody to nothing. It's hurtful and it's sad and it's I don't know. Why do some people have so much and others have so little? It's the story of America, all in the Jets quarterback room. Looking at the running backs who went off the board, Javonte Williams came off the board. We see Zach Moss coming off the board. Raheem Mostert, Austin Eckler. I know when we had our podcast with Jesse Morse, the great doctor, we were talking about Austin Eckler having a possible bump back this year. Hopefully he's getting a lot of receiving work in Washington. Chubb, not quite sure what to think about his rebuilt knee, but he sure can squat a lot. I don't know. And looking at the wide receivers who came off, we have Worthy, who looked really good in a preseason game. And I know preseason doesn't matter, but it does a little. It does a little. And we got to see Worthy being exceptionally fast and defenses not being able to quite catch up with him. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do, especially when Marquise Brown, who just went off the board at 8-1, comes back. It's a lot of speed with Mahomes. I don't know. That's going to be a dangerous, dangerous offense. And then the last two picks right before Doug is picking at 8-11 were Keon Coleman and Deontay Johnson. Sad to see Deontay go off the board because that probably would have been Doug's pick there.
Yeah, probably would have been.
He would have been dancing, celebrating National Senior Citizens Day by drafting Ridley and Deontay Johnson back to back. Wouldn't it be a bad thing?
So, JJ, I believe I'm caught up again. And yeah, you're right. Deontay Johnson would have been the pick, and I'm not crazy about going 5 receivers, but we talk about, especially after round 5, I should say, especially after round 10, but especially when we're getting to almost the back half of our draft already. I want value, and I believe Deontay Johnson I have as certainly a wide receiver 3, and I think I have him as like a 5th or 6th round value. Either way, so I'm still liking what's available at quarterback. I will probably make that my next pick. I'm sorry, the pick after this one. I am torn a bit, but I do want to have that depth at running back if possible, and I don't think. I know the board says JSN is the pick. I don't know how much I'm going to use him. Whereas Deontay Johnson, I would have probably sprinkled him in the flex. It's going to take something special for JSN to crack my lineup in any week with Kupp, Smith, McLaurin, and Ridley. Anyway, I'm looking for that depth at running back right now. So, and I love the upside. I was so high on Spears last year, and I think he performed pretty well given the circumstances. Bad line, inconsistent usage, at least as a runner. Would not be surprised if he ends up splitting right down the middle with Pollard, and Pollard probably went at least 2 rounds ago. And I would not be surprised if Spears actually ends up becoming the lead back. So I'm getting my very high-end backup here in Tyjae Spears.
All right, so Tyjae Spears goes off the board. We see the next 2 picks as DeAndre Hopkins and Jaylen Warren.
Easy, good enough. And
strings be damned.
So my thinking here now, as I told you with I was confident I could wait on quarterback, and even if I didn't go quarterback here, I like what would be available to me in the next round or 2. Something I want to point out too, and there's reasons that everything that you see on my big board, there's a reason for that it's there. I want you to pay particular close attention here. We are in what, round 8 now?
We are in round 9.
Round 9.
Yep.
Okay. Notice I still haven't moved out of my 6th round of values yet. I don't necessarily need that little jolt of confidence, but just knowing that I'm still staying in that round of values is encouraging to me. Either way, going to dip down. I am going to go ahead and when in drafts that I can't get Anthony Richardson in, I am going to trust Cliff Kingsbury. I know. This is
what? Those are words that have never been said.
But the thinking here is I wrote this in the column, the preseason matchup column that hit the site on Tuesday. Actually, this part is actually going to come out later this week. So I'm giving you a teaser, but Jaden Daniels is a similar prospect. I think he's actually a more refined passer than Kyler Murray, which we both know was a Cliff Kingsbury student there for 3 or 4 years in Arizona. I think Daniels is a more refined passer. That's my pick.
All right, so Jaden Daniels goes off the board. Not going to say I know Doug, but I knew that pick was coming. He has sold me on Jaden Daniels, and if I'm being quite honest, watching him play this preseason, well warranted. I'm glad Doug went ahead and took Jaden Daniels there. We see that there were 4 more quarterbacks who went off the board, and Jaden probably would have been in that 4. So we see Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Tua, and Jared Goff all being drafted. And again, we see 4 tight ends, Joku, Goddard, Schultz, and Hawkinson. Doug had mentioned JSN. JSN goes off the board immediately after Doug picked at 9-2. We see Christian Watson, Brian Thomas, a couple of the rookies, younger players going off the board. Jamison Williams, Sutton, who I've been coming around on a little bit, especially seeing that Bo Nix was named the starter. Cortland Sutton is bound to be the wide receiver 1 on that team, and you can get him very late in your drafts. Curtis Samuel, a little dinged up right now, but hopefully he'll be ready for the season with his turf toe. And Romeo Dubs has gone off the board. Running back wise, I'm glad that Doug got Tyjae Spears in the 8th because we see Singletary, Benson, Robinson, Ezekiel Elliott, and Gus Edwards all going off the board, leading to our pick at 10-11. Now, I say our pick because I want to take credit for what he is doing. Not because I have any role in it, but hopefully if he wins money, like he'll be like, hey, JJ, help me.
Right.
And like throw me a ducat or 2, right? Like in Godfather, just need to get my beak a little wet. Just give me a taste, right?
Yes. I'm still catching up here.
Well, that's okay. I can vamp a little bit more, buddy.
No. The thing about it is, though, you kind of knew that the quarterbacks were going to start coming off the board, and I am going to I think like I did last year, I'm going to prioritize any quarterback that has upside for, let's say, 500 rushing yards or more. And there's no question that Daniels has that. I'm going to need you to go back to the other screen. Sorry, JJ.
That's okay, buddy.
So yeah, we got Gus Bus. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind actually. So I know this is making for riveting television here.
Oh, listen, I will share that. My wife, Mrs. JJ, went away for 17 days starting today. I'm not sure why she left me, but I'm pretty sure I know why she left me. Shut up, Doug. You shouldn't laugh so hard. But the best part is that she left me all these little notes. So I don't know if you can see that, but I walked into my little podcast studio and I found a little note that says, have a great podcast. And then she drew a terrible football. But
no laces?
No, she put laces on them.
Oh, she didn't put laces. All right.
She put laces because she is an amazing woman who has put up with my insanity, Doug.
That makes 2 of us putting up with your insanity.
Hey-o.
Hey-o.
Pew, pew. I'd flip you off, but I don't know who watches this.
All right, JJ, if you want to flip back to the board here.
You are so bossy. Yes, here's your big board, my young man.
Yeah. So as I have it here, I believe the top 3 guys are available, correct?
Well, I can't read that far. I'm old. It's Senior Citizens Day. Josh Downs.
You pulled a hamstring.
Chase Brown and Jerome Ford.
You pulled a hamstring. You didn't lose an eye.
Oh, listen. Might as well. I believe they're all available. I did not see Josh Downs go on the board.
Yeah, so when I'm this confident in my receiver core, it makes little sense to. I think Downs is going to be available for me with the next pick anyway. And I may have to make this change in my projections as seeing this, because I probably do feel a little bit better about Jerome Ford long term than I do Chase Brown, just given the offensive line and whatnot. I'm gonna do one other look here too, because when I am feeling this way, I do like to look at the green highlights, and because here's the deal, JJ. We're assuming that Nick Chubb is going to make it back at some point, and he's going to be roughly, let's say, 80% of what he was.
Okay, that's a fair assumption.
Well, what if he's not? Who's going to benefit?
Qui bene, right? The famous Latin phrase. Who benefits?
So
Jerome Ford will benefit.
I get that. I think Chase Brown is the better running back in Cincinnati. I have Zach Moss probably in the 140 range, so he may have handled the heavier load, but I think it's going to be that situation in Cincinnati. I think is going to be hot. I hate to say hot hand running back, but I don't think Chase Brown handles that heavy of a load regardless. I think he'll be a lead back. I don't think they'll allow him to be a featured back. So anyway, I'm going to, again, go down my board just a little bit and run the risk or at least play the odds that Nick Chubb is going to do no better than, shall we say, split the carries in Cleveland this year, because that was a pretty serious knee injury. Jerome Ford's the pick.
All right. Jerome Ford goes off the board. Then we see Lockett and Corum follow.
Oh, Corum. Did I just hear Blake Corum? Ooh.
You did. And you see, it sounds so excited about hearing his name.
I'm excited. Yes.
A funny thing happened on the way to draft Blake Corum. It's a musical. It's an old musical.
And see, that's the thing. There's enough names in the draft, and even with the board in front of me, and this is one reason why I don't mind highlighting, just like I do in an auction. I don't mind highlighting guys that I'm willing to reach down a little bit on the board for. Had I remembered Corum was still available, that may have entered the conversation. I know he's a little bit further down on my board, but I love that contingent upside. I think we discussed last week, JJ, that Kyron Williams is probably going to miss 4 or 5 games. And in those weeks that he misses, there's a good chance that Corum's going to be ranked as an RB1. I'm not sure we can say the same thing about Ford. Either way, as I suspected, and I think I'm going to stay away because I like my tight end and quarterback. I'm going to stay around for that position for at least another round. I thought Josh Downs would make it back to me. I think there's a much better than non-zero chance that Josh Downs, believe it or not, leads the Colts in receptions this year, at least when he gets back healthy. Either way, I don't have to worry about his high ankle sprain, at least the first 4 weeks of the season. And I love that. I love the fact that he's probably a PPR cheat code. He's the pick.
All right. So Josh Downs goes off the board. Now, we were debating Ford versus Brown, and Brown immediately goes after Downs. So we had both of those guys in our targets. We see a couple more quarterbacks go off the board. Some teams getting their second QB. We saw Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, who's been falling in a lot of drafts. I can understand why, but especially in redraft, he definitely has an upside. Matt Stafford and Kirk Cousins have gone on the board. This must be the Achilles section of the draft with both Cousins and Rodgers. Is Dobbins going to be your pick? You get all three. Get anybody with an Achilles injury gets drafted this round. That was a joke. I know he won't draft Dobbins. Tight ends. We're now getting towards the end of usable tight ends. We see Pat Freiermuth, Luke Musgrave. I know my Rider Dynasty podcast co-host, Joe Harlow, loves Musgrave. And then Cole Kmet has come off the board. Only a couple running backs. Oh, J.K. Dobbins did go that round. Look at that. Dobbins, Rodgers, and Cousins. Wow. That's crazy. Hopefully nobody else gets hurt on that row. It might be some bad luck, some bad juju. We see Charbonnet. Is it Charbonnet? Charbonnet? Charbonnet?
Charbonnet.
Charbonnet.
Charbonnet. Charbonnet.
Charbonnet. Like Chardonnay? Chardonnay. And Hubbard both went off the board along with Dobbins. Dobbins is supposedly healthy. Could be interesting as a late round flyer. We only have 2 picks left. So wide receiver wise, after Downs goes off the board, we see Shakir, Adonai Mitchell, Jacoby Myers, Xavier Legette, Jerry Jeudy, Rashid Shaheed, Josh Palmer, and the big Mike Williams for the Jets. Can you mute your computer, young man?
Yeah, I know. Wow.
I don't know if you're singing to me, if you're just getting a lot of text, if your OnlyFans is blowing up. But whatever it is, I support you fully. You know that you're my brother in arms, and I always have your back.
You know what? I'll try to find guys. I'll try to type in names of guys that are actually still on the board. How about that? That will help our quest.
Oh, is that what it's doing when it can't find somebody?
No, everything else is turned off. So
well, Doug, if you're good at anything, it's turning a lot of things off.
Nice.
Hey-o.
Well played.
Adios, mio.
You're a jerk.
Yeah, but I'm kind of lovable sometimes. All right. Are you ready to make your pick, young man?
I am getting there, but you know what? I think.
What do you think?
I think I'm actually there. I want to believe. If did you see Jaleel McLaughlin go yet?
Jaleel McLaughlin. No, I don't think I did see him go. I could just check running backs and see. He is available.
All right. Once again, and here's the fact, JJ. Look at this. I still haven't made a pick outside the top 100, and we're going to be in the 12th round.
12th round pick right here.
We're at the end of the 12th round, and if I really want to drive home a point, maybe I made Darnell Mooney the last pick, but I don't know. I'm looking more for team build than I am for bragging rights or anything like that. But Jaleel McLaughlin is being identified as somebody who may have the Darren Sproles role in this offense. Either way, I think I'm getting a very efficient player he's my RB5 look, so he's probably going to play at most. With McCaffrey and Kenneth Walker, he better not play for more than 2 or 3 weeks, but he will have spike weeks. I love the idea of having him stashed on my bench.
All right, we went with Jaleel McLaughlin at this point. We see that Jalen Wright and Gabe Davis come off the board, leaving you with your final pick.
Jalen Wright's a good pick there. I'm not saying that I would have made it. I'm not saying I wouldn't have made it. I like that pick. So once again, we're reviewing the roster. I believe we have 5 running backs. We have, I believe, 5 receivers, tight end, and a quarterback. Still all about scooping up the value here if possible, but I'm torn somewhere between backing up and just backing up a quarterback or tight end. I could wait on Conklin. Conklin's probably going to go for another 2 or 3 rounds, and we're not going to do that. So he would be somebody I would be eyeballing. As I'm going down here, I do like the idea, and I need to grab more of this guy because I wrote about him in my after my top 100 guys. And I don't know what his early season role is going to be, but Ray Davis is going to be a problem. Ray Davis is going to be a problem for not for Singletary, for James Cook this year.
Yes, he will.
And so while I'm saddened to see that Jalen Wright came off the board because I think the upside with him is huge. I can only imagine what might happen if James Cook gets hurt and Ray Davis has the backfield to himself. So that will be my final pick.
All right. Ray Davis goes off the board, finishing our draft. Looking at the team, if I drop that down, we can see we ended up with CMC, Kupp, Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, Kenneth Walker, Evan Ingram, Calvin Ridley, Tyjae Spears, Jaden Daniels, Jerome Ford, Josh Downs, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Ray Davis. Love that squad, but we're not quite done yet. Before we move to the middle draft slots, let's get a little word from our sponsors. Well, we all get ready. Actually, I won't be able to get ready because I'm still talking. So if you haven't checked out the new IDP Plus website, you are missing out. The team did a complete overhaul. And when I say team, I probably just mean Nate. Did a complete overhaul of the website. And it is nice. It is running so fast and smooth. It is beautiful. I love it. So head over to idpplus.com after the show. Check out the website. Take advantage of all the special membership offers and start your march towards fantasy football greatness today. The link and the detail are in the show notes. All right, sir. We are going to switch over to a middle slot. So I'm going to share this tab instead. The 7th draft slot. We're going to start this, Doug, as long as you are ready.
I am.
Let's see who goes off the board. All right. We see Jefferson, Tyreek, CMC, CeeDee Lamb, Breece Hall, and Jamar Chase going off the board. So I will I'm going to let you catch up there. I'm going to quick change some draft settings to make sure we have enough time to do our picks. There we go. That will work a little bit better for us.
Wow. There's some definitely some interesting picks here already. Justin Jefferson at the 1. You're going to have a hard time finding that.
You might, but picking from the 7th slot, I think there is a good chance you would see those 6 players go.
Sure. Without
just
question.
Not necessarily in that order.
So, JJ, we had the draft plan show last week, and I encouraged everyone to go receiver in whenever possible. And in our first 2 drafts so far, I'm going running back. I don't have a problem doing this in part because Bijan's going to get used. Probably, I don't think anyone's expecting McCaffrey-like usage, but I'd be a fool for passing up Bijan at a middle pick here, and when somebody you always do these things with an idea of what you're going to do with the next pick or 2, and I'm going to like a receiver that's going to come back to me in the middle of the second round. Bijan's the pick.
All right, so Bijan goes off the board. Then we see a couple receivers go off who we probably assume would have ARSB, A.J. Brown, Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, and Devontae Adams. The running backs that went off the board are Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley. Again, I don't know if I 100% agree with the order that these players are going off. However, they probably all would have come off by this point, just maybe slightly different. So I'm happy that we started with Bijan. That offensive line should be good this year.
So JJ, I think I'm ready here, and this will go fairly quickly. I'm going to once again dance around my board because I think some of the options that I'm going to like, some of the options that are available higher than Puka Nacua are going to be available in the 3rd round. So why not try to get greedy? And I'm going to experiment a little bit here, but I'm going to try to get a guy who's valued in the middle of the 2nd round, or at least should be valued in the middle of the 2nd round, not a 1st round pick like he was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago or a month ago. But again, I think I'm going to get a 2nd round value in the 3rd round with this pick. So I'm trying to get some value with this one.
All right, so Puka goes off the board at 2-6. We see right after Puka, Drake London goes, Chris Olave has gone, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs. We see our first 2 tight ends with Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce. We see our first QB with Josh Allen. And the running backs that have gone off the board are Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, Isaiah Pacheco, and Josh Jacobs, who I know is a little bit of a darling for my buddy Doug. Snatches him up late in some drafts. This is a little bit early, Possibly, but maybe not in Doug's eyes. His eyes are a little kinder towards Josh Jacobs than mine are.
Yeah, I think the industry is going to start catching up with that pretty soon.
Big fantasy.
Big fantasy. Yeah, big fantasy. You know it.
Maybe that's we should change the name of the pod to Big Fantasy.
Our friend Howard
Trademark.
Like
Trademark.
Yeah. All right. So as expected here, if you want to flip back,
I do.
I wasn't exactly sure that Cooper Kupp was going to make it back to me, but I'm going to be hard pressed. I know what the thinking is going to be here. You can't draft two receivers from the same team. Well, I'm going to tell you, you can, especially if they're both 90 catch guys. So, and I don't see why. I have them ranked as wide receiver 8 and 9 for a reason. So Waddle has his issues as far as staying healthy, as we've discussed, and I would be tempted to go Devonta Smith here just because of his durability. But I think I'm thinking upside with basically every pick I make, and Cooper Kupp, if healthy, is we know the upside. I don't care that he's now 31. He's healthy now. Cooper Kupp's the pick.
All right, Cooper Kupp goes off the board. It's a risky pick. Let's see if it pays off for him. All right, so we see Kupp go off the board. Wide receivers who followed were Evans, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, the big man in Indy, Michael Pittman. We see 3 more quarterbacks, Hurts, Jackson, and Mahomes go off the board. Only 2 more running backs, White and James Cook. Not looking too bad. So far we have Bijan Robinson, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. I myself would be a little uneasy taking 2 from the same team, but Doug makes a solid point. They both catch 90 balls, and they both should catch 90 balls, knock on wood. I'll take 2 90 catch receivers on the same team. So Doug is deep in thought. He is marking up his board, making sure he has got everything before he says, is Breece Hall still available? Then I have to make fun of him. I don't want to do that.
That would be unfortunate. Yes. Okay, JJ. I believe we are now ready again.
All right, we go back to the board.
So I told you last week, I want to stay in that blue tier as long as possible. I will not be deviating from that. What I will be deviating from is the pure order that I have them in. And for the sake of diversity, I should say here, I went with Devonta Smith in the last draft. I have him 1/10 of a point ahead of DK Metcalf. But the difference being here is with the last draft that we did, the early draft that we did, I'm looking for more consistency because I had started off with McCaffrey. Here, I want upside with everything, and DK Metcalf is going to be the pick. By the way, we talked about the Ryan Grubb offense that is coming in. I think we've seen DK Metcalf's floor so far throughout his career. Ryan Grubb will throw deep. DK Metcalf is as good of a deep receiver as you can get, and if you buy into trying to keep things the same as the offense from last year, I think DK Metcalf ends up playing the Roma Dunze role in this offense.
All right, so DK Metcalf is the pick. Once he goes off the board, we see some other big name wide receivers fall to the wayside. Malik Neighbors, Tank Dell, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper, and George Pickens. We also see 2 more tight ends with Mark Andrews and Trey McBride. We see another quarterback, bringing 5 total quarterbacks who have gone so far, with CJ Stroud being selected, and 3 wide receivers, running backs, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, and Joe Mixon. So, looking at what we've done, we have 3 solid wide receivers. I feel really good about what Doug's doing with his wide receivers. I love the upside of Bijan Robinson. Hopefully, now that Arthur Smith is gone, he will be fed the ball. He'll be the primary back in Atlanta. Unless Cordarrelle Patterson gets cut and signed. I don't know, but hopefully that's not going to happen. We should see Bijan being fed. So we're having a lot of touches in our first 4 picks. I'm interested to see where Doug goes.
As am I.
As is Doug, which is the beauty of a draft. You never really know what's going to happen. You have to embrace the unknown. You have to dive in head first. And with all your preparation, you should be able to survive. Swim to the top just by taking value. Doug?
I believe I'm ready. I may have missed or overclicked on, I may have clicked too many guys. That's okay. This seems like a great spot to pick up my second running back.
Okay.
The tight ends that are still available. I'm torn. Again, we're always thinking about next pick, at least the next pick, and the next 2 or 3 picks. I still see one RB1 candidate available, and if you've listened to me for any length of time, JJ, and I think you have, you know I have an affinity for James Conner.
Slight.
And yes, we know about the missed games. Guess what? Most running backs miss at least 1 or 2 games. If Conner misses 4 and gives me RB1 or close to RB1 production, I'll learn to live with it. Conner's the pick.
All right. So we'll go back to the board. We will pick James Conner, see what happens. So in both this draft and the early slot, Doug goes with a wide receiver sandwich right between 2 running backs for his first 5 picks. We see 3 tight ends come off the board, Kittle, Pitts, and Kincaid. We see a couple more, 3 wide receivers go off, and T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, and Christian Kirk. And we see 3 more, that's pretty even, 3 more running backs, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, and Aaron Jones. And lastly, the beloved, the exalted one who everybody loves this year but me, Anthony Richardson. Now, I understand what everybody's saying about if he stays healthy, what he can be. I am very concerned about the first part, if he can stay healthy. So I'm interested to see what happens this year. My buddy Jameson Hutchinson loves Anthony Richardson. I think he'd carry him around. He would build a statue to him if he could. I would not, but I don't build statues. I'm a terrible sculptor. I'm running out of things to say. I'm going to start telling personal stories.
Please do. I'm ready. I just wanted to hear you continue talking. So, JJ, I don't see Terry McLaurin off the board yet.
Oh, I do not see Terry McLaurin off the board either.
I would love to go Chris Godwin here, but I would be stupid. I have McLaurin as a 3rd round value where we are now in the middle of the 6th round. If you're going to tell me I can get, even if he does nothing but repeat his own numbers from the last 3 years, are you telling me that I'm not going to have a better flex than 10 members of the league? I'm going to wait on quarterback. I wouldn't mind going running back here. But I'd be an absolute fool if I didn't take somebody that's a 3rd round value that I think is a 3rd round value here. So
he's a fool for love. And he takes Terry McLaurin right off the board, snatches up F1. All right, and now we see a couple more guys coming off the board. We now have 4 wide receivers, 2 running backs. Let's see what else came off. All right, so we see 2 more running backs with Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott coming off the board. A handful of running backs with Tony Pollard, Najee Harris, Zamir White, and Ramondre Stevenson. The wide receivers who came off after Terry McLaurin was our pick were Rashee Rice, Chris Godwin, Xavier Worthy, and Rome Aduns, who has been looking great Of course, I know it's in the preseason. I know. I get it. But you still have to catch the balls. You still have to look good in preseason. You can't go out there and suck it up. And he's looking good. He has very good body control. Still not sure if he's going to see enough targets to be worth drafting and redraft this year, especially with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore in town. I mean, obviously he is the future. I don't know if the future is now, despite what the kids say. As far as tight ends have gone off the board, we still don't have a tight end. We see Evan Ingram, who was our pick last round, and Brock Bowers, the old and the new. Do we have something borrowed or something blue to go with those two? I don't know. Doug.
JJ, so we're back. I'm caught up, and I do like for another reason, I like being in the middle. Is it's easier to catch up. So again, we're looking at two, at least according to my board, we're looking at 2 early 4th round values at receiver. I am very tempted to go in that direction, if for another reason, just to accumulate value for trades. But then I also don't need to make my job harder as far as setting lineups. And I think Jake Ferguson's going to be the pick here. I do believe he is probably he's the last tight end I feel comfortable with starting every week. And let's face it, if CeeDee Lamb doesn't report here pretty soon, he might be the number 1 target in Dallas. So at the very least, I think I have him penciled in here for 81 catches, 834 yards, and 7 touchdowns. If he comes anywhere close to that, and I don't think that's unrealistic, maybe 70 catches, 700 yards, and 7 touchdowns, but I think that's a fine tight end one.
That would be an amazing season. Either of those two predictions would be great. So we see Jake Ferguson going off the board at 7-7 to Doug's team. The only other tight end who went off between that and his next pick at 8-6 is David Njoku. We see 4 wide receivers, Jaden Reed, Calvin Ridley, Ladd McConkey, and Hollywood Brown. You see 4 running backs, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Zach Moss, and Raheem Mostert. And 1 lonely QB, Kyler Murray, has come off the board. So looking at his draft so far, and I don't like judging Doug so quickly, but I will. I'm pretty happy with this draft. I tried out Doug's draft plan a few times, and I was I shouldn't say surprisingly. I say surprisingly because I'm self-deprecating and I don't think I can do a good enough job. I was happy with my draft every time, and I was like, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought it would be. All you have to do is cross off players and then take the top ranked players. And I trust your rankings. But man, you talk about just finding value after value after value. Just follow the big board. Take the value as it comes to you. So
speaking of value, if you want to flip back to the big board real quick.
I do want to switch back.
Because I am bossy. If we've established anything, I am bossy.
It's true.
And I want to pay particular attention to the screaming value that apparently is Deontay Johnson. I was seriously going to consider him and Calvin Ridley with the previous pick, but this is part of why I color the tiers like I do, so I understand where I'm willing to, where one tight end tier ends and the other one begins. One ends and the other one begins. I should be more confident in David Njoku, for example, but Deshaun Watson hasn't leaned on him when healthy, so I won't be getting a lot of Watson this year. Anyway, Deontay Johnson is too much of a screaming value at this point. Again, we're talking somebody I have ranked as a wide receiver 2, a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 value in the early 4th round. Be an absolute idiot at this point to pass up on him.
Well, and if I know anything about my buddy Doug, it is that he is not a flaming idiot. He's more of a smoldering moron. No, that was a joke. Doug is one of the smartest people I've ever met. I love talking to Doug. Fortunately, talking with Doug tends to make me feel dumb.
Oh, that's not right.
Oh, no, that's not right at all. I should believe in myself a little bit more. That and other Snapple lid words of wisdom. What was the old Mitch Hedberg joke? Fruit on the bottom, hope on top. That's for any of you Mitch Hedberg fans. It's a deep cut. All right. After Deontay Johnson goes off the board, we see Austin Eckler, Jordan Brooks, Devin Singletary, and Jalen Warren as the 4 running backs who have disappeared. Then we see Christian Watson, Jordan Addison, DeAndre Hopkins, Keon Coleman, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. At quarterback, we actually saw a little bit of a run after that last pick. So we see Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, and Tua Tagovailoa. Now, if I had to think of where Doug is going to go, I don't think he's going to be predictable here. I don't think he's going to go quarterback, but I could be wrong. I think he's going to play a little bit of QB chicken. He's going to see who comes back to him. Or he's just going to yell chicken and take who he wants.
You could make a case for either one. You definitely could. So I'm going to tell you, I'm conflicted here is my love for 2 players.
Okay. Do tell.
So you see, I have highlighted Tyjae Spears and Jay Daniels, both men who I drafted in the early draft. I do need to think about my backup running backs, especially with Connor being with the injury history he has. Also need that dual threat quarterback. But again, I don't mind. I'd be willing to even go Jared Goff as my starter. I mean, I believe he's going to play 13 dome games this year, so I don't mind playing that game at quarterback. I hope Jaden Daniels rolls back around to me, but I like the upside of Spears too much, and there's a reason I have him ranked as a 6th round value here. So Tyjae Spears is the pick.
All right, now this is my favorite part. Let's see who falls. No whammies, no whammies. Stop. All right. Schultz. Oh, Caleb Williams, first quarterback to drop. We're getting close. Oh, you're right. Oh no.
A couple whammies.
Listening, we got a couple whammies. After taking Tyjae Spears and saying if Jaden Daniels doesn't fall, you'd be happy with Goff. You see Caleb Williams, and then the 2 picks right before we went were Jaden Daniels and Jared Goff. So Doug is downshifting right now. He's regaining his footing, and he's finding what is he going to do. He's using strategery.
Strategery. I may not have strategery. At least at one point I want to make here, just for the folks at home. I imagine the question I would be getting is, Doug, you have James Conner. Why the hell did you not make Trey Benson more of a priority? Is that fair question?
Why didn't you make Trey Benson more of a priority?
That's a good question. Thank you, JJ.
You're welcome.
So the fact of the matter is he may end up being the handcuff. I'm not entirely sure Arizona knows that yet. I think maybe he's the early down option. Maybe he cedes third downs to Michael Carter or Imari DiMarcado. I don't know, and I'm not here. I'm not gonna try to guess. And I'm not in. I know they say in managed leagues, grab your handcuffs in big tournaments. Grab other people's handcuffs. I'm just not sure about. Benson being the handcuff. I'm going to need you to switch back to the other board here real quick. Sorry. So
we had Brian Robinson go off the board, Trey Benson and Gus Edwards at running back. Tight ends were Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson. Only one wide receiver went off the board, Brian Thomas. Junior, not senior. I don't know what senior's doing, but nobody's drafting him. See, Doug faked me out there. I thought Doug had moved very quickly. Turns out he was just pontificating a little bit.
Pontificating. That's right. Buying time. That's right. So yeah, should I? And these are the risks that you run. What I didn't want is somebody like Blake Corum as my third running back. Maybe in retrospect, I should have probably went Daniels just to make sure I had that. I'm far from admitting defeat though, and this is not a defeat thing. I'd say I said up to Goff. I think Goff's my QB 14. Trevor Lawrence is my QB 15. And I don't see that much of a difference between guys like Trevor Lawrence and Matthew Stafford. So I honestly don't have anywhere I need to go right now other than quarterback. I'm looking. Let's see. We got 5 really good receivers. So I'm probably going to ignore the Josh Downs value here. I'm gonna put off quarterback for one more round, and I bypassed Chase Brown the last time. Let's go ahead and keep adding to that running back room.
Chase Brown is the choice, adding to a already loaded running back room where we have Bijan Robinson, James Conner, Tyjae Spears, and now Chase Brown. We decided to play another round of quarterback chicken. Feel like a radio host. And we're back. All right, we see. After Chase Brown, we saw Zeke Elliott, Blake Corum, and Jerome Ford come off the board. A wide receiver, we see Jameson Williams, Curtis Samuel, Romeo Doubs, Cortland Sutton, talked about before, and Tyler Lockett. I have a lot of questions about Tyler Lockett this year. I'm torn between him and JSN. Hopefully, they play a few more 3 wide receiver sets up there in Seattle this year, now that they have a new OC. It'll be nice to see all 3 of them on the field. But if not, I wonder if JSN is just going to slowly take over or quickly take over from Tyler Lockett. At tight end, we saw Cole Kmet and Pat Freiermuth, 2 relatively young tight ends who we have high hopes for. We'll see what happens this year. And 2 quarterbacks, Herbert and Cousins.
For the sake of moving this along here, I'm not going to cross off everybody, but this is the time I need to take a quarterback now. And
it is time.
Again, probably should have done it 2 rounds ago when I got Spears. I was playing a hunch, and sometimes hunches are going to be wrong. So, but either way, that does not mean I don't like somebody like Trevor Lawrence. And you look at what he's got this year. Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, not so much. I'm not so excited about that. But Evan Ingram, I said Kirk Thomas and Evan Ingram are the guys I'd be excited about. He does give you a little bit of a rushing floor, not Jane Daniels like, but he gives you more passing. I want to be competitive at quarterback, especially if I'm taking one this late. Just give me a competitive quarterback, and I can. Every year you have guys like C.J. Stroud that you're able to find, maybe not like C.J. Stroud, but somebody along those lines that you can find off waivers. The quarterback is not one position. Unless I'm expecting a special season from a quarterback like I am Anthony Richardson, I don't need to go that crazy on quarterback. So Trevor Lawrence is the pick.
Trevor Lawrence is the pick. The game of chicken has ended. Doug has won by landing Trevor Lawrence. All right. Now, in between Trevor Lawrence and our next pick at 12-6, we have seen only one other quarterback. I wonder if he could have waited. Oh, but you never know. You never know until after the round is gone whether or not you should have waited. But then again, as I always like to quote Robert Frost in The Road Not Taken, way leads on to way. And you can never go back again. So once you make one decision, just move on with your life because you can't change that decision. So Aaron Rodgers went off the board. We see a couple wide receivers. We see Shakir, Leggett, Jacoby Myers, Adonai Mitchell, Jerry Jeudy, and Mike Williams. We have the fine glass of Charbonnet and Chuba Hubbard. I know it's not Chuba, but it should be Chuba Hubbard.
It should be Chuba.
But Chuba Hubbard is also a very good running back. Hopefully going to be giving Jonathan Brooks, some time to recover from his injuries. might be good early in the year. Tight end, we see Musgrave going off. And that leads us to pick 12-6, the penultimate pick for Doug's team.
And yeah, I at this point, I've decided to not cross names off anymore. So we might run into he's been picked. I don't think this guy's been picked, though. I want to keep adding upside to my running back room. We might, with this kind of build, I might end up drafting 3 quarterbacks. I doubt it, but I would probably, with where Trevor Lawrence is my QB1, I would definitely draft another one and try to play matchups at that point. The guy I'm going for here is, believe it or not, Jalen Wright.
Jalen Wright is available. And he goes off the board at 12-6.
And one of the things I'm playing the system here a little bit too, because I remember Jalen Wright going off the board about this time in the previous draft that we did. That does not mean, however, that I don't think that Jalen Wright can't be a certifiable stud. So yeah, I know I went crazy. I wouldn't even say reach here. This is just more of went way down the board. But yeah, I don't. Let's just say I don't have a problem with that.
Well, he's sitting behind 2 oft injured running backs,
and
that's what I hope anything bad happens to either of the 2. But there's a non-zero chance that Jalen Wright is seeing some serious time this year.
And the other thing I'm going to do here, and we'll wrap this up again because we want to try to keep this moving. I believe Tyler Algier is still available.
Tyler Algier is available.
And so this allows me to, obviously to wrap things up, number 1, but number 2, back up Bijan just in case something does happen. Again, I would have put more of a priority into handcuffing Connor if I knew that Benson was the handcuff. I don't. I know Algier is the handcuffed Bijan. I don't have a problem with that. I love the receiver room. I'm perfectly fine with Jake Ferguson. Now, if we were to continue drafting, Matthew Stafford would probably be my next pick, just as an example. And if you're telling me I can go into a season with Lawrence and Stafford, well, if for another reason with this team build, I have a Nakua and Cup, so I'm not necessarily trying to stack, but on matchups that I like, Stafford, Nakua, and Cup, sign me up. So it was. I will tell you though, to the way as far as I like to build a team, this, and I'm glad the viewers get to see this because not all your hunches, not all your hopes and dreams are going to come through during the course of the draft. You need to be able to react, and this I do not have a problem with. I think this is I'd like to hear your thoughts, JJ, but I think for the quarterback plan not going the way I wanted it to, this was still a pretty decent roster.
If I walked away from any of my 2 home leagues with this as my roster after 13 rounds, I'd be very excited. Trevor Lawrence, Bijan Robinson, and James Conner, Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf as your 3 starting wide receivers, Jake Ferguson with F1 Terry McLaurin in your flex spot. Man, and then your bench is Deontay Johnson, who I think is going to be an easy wide receiver 2 this year, as long as he's healthy, with Tyjae Spears, Chase Brown, Jalen Wright, and Tyler Algier as backup running backs. I mean, if Connor and or Robinson miss any time, you have a plethora of options to fill that gap. So I really like this draft. I like the fact that the quarterback position did not go the way you wanted it to, because as anybody who's played fantasy knows, your drafts usually don't go the exact way you planned them.
And I'll say one other thing here too. I'm high enough, let's say, on Justin Fields. So I told you Stafford would probably be my next pick. I would probably then make one last pick on Fields, and then I still might get my 500 to 800 yard rushing threat at quarterback, but late in the draft. To me, it's worth a calculated gamble in the 16th, 17th, 18th round.
It is worth the gamble, although I do not gamble. All right, before we get to our last mock draft from a late slot, a word from our sponsors. And it's draft season, folks. As the home leagues start to emerge from their slumbers, frustrated commissioners are trying to organize draft day. Why not take one part of that nightmare off your plate and order Trophy Smack's gorgeous draft boards, complete with player stickers so deep you couldn't possibly use them all. And for the first time, Trophy Smack is offering an IDP expansion pack for all of us defensive degenerates. So no more scribbling names on blank stickers. Go to Trophy Smack and get the only draft board that meets all of your needs. Check out the link in the show notes and get yours today. All right, for our final draft, Doug, we are picking from the 12 slot. That's right, we are at the turn. I'm going to hit start draft and just get this thing going. I've spent more time talking to you today than I have any other person in my life. It's okay because I like talking to Doug. So we see CMC going first, followed by Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, ARSB, and Jay Jetta, followed by Bijan and Brees, then A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Jahmyr Gibbs at 11. So we are going as Doug frantically clicks through his list, marking off the names who he does not want on his roster because they're all going to stink anyway.
They're all going to stink anyway. That's right. So, all right. Think I'm queued up here.
I think we're alone now.
Oh boy, Tiffany, huh? That's you making a Tiffany reference?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Only because I couldn't quote Debbie Gibson.
Right. Nice.
Go ahead. You're up.
There is one running back, and I can't believe in this execution of our draft plan, I told you I wanted to go receiver in the first round, and as it turned out, it's not going to happen in any of them. That's still the plan. I would still encourage you going receiver. Anyway, I'm going to try to make this much quicker. And I believe Saquon Barkley is the one running back who has a chance of competing with Bijan, Brees, and CMC to be overall RB1. Outside of a 20 touchdown year from Jonathan Taylor, I don't see him doing it. And I don't think Gibbs has the volume. Saquon's going to be the pick.
All right. So Saquon goes off the board, and you are on the clock at 2-1.
Very interested to see how this decision plays out. I do not want to go RB to start my draft this year, but if you're telling me, just what I just said about Taylor, who's challenging Taylor? Anthony Richardson? We're talking. I could be the only team in this league that has 200-300 touch running backs. If I go this route, and they're two of my top 12 players, I don't need to touch running back again until at least round 7. I will probably my next 4 picks will probably be receivers or 3 receivers on a tight end. It'll be something along those lines. So I will try to figure it out. I will hope that one of my wide receiver 2 picks ends up being a wide receiver 1, but give me 2 RB1s. So Jonathan Taylor.
All right, JT goes off the board. And let's see what happens. All right, so following JT, we'll talk about the running backs who came off because we're not taking another one. We see Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, and Pacheco all going in the second round, followed by Devon Achane, Josh Jacobs, and Rashad White. Now, shockingly, Team 1 started with 3 running backs. Haven't seen that since I drafted back in the early 2012s. At wide receiver, because we know Doug is going to be focusing, we did see a lot come off the board. So we saw Devontae Adams, Marvin Harrison, Puka Nacua, Drake London, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, DJ Moore, and Stephon Diggs. Well, I know exactly what's going to happen now. So
you might, I don't.
I might know. I don't know.
I think I know where you're hinting, though.
Yes. So I'm not going to ruin what he's about to say.
Yeah,
we did see 2 tight ends go off the board, Kelsey and Laporta. We saw 4 quarterbacks, but Doug is not spooked by seeing quarterbacks go off the board. He has nerves of steel. So Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. That don't mean a thing to Doug. He is standing resolute. And I know one of these 2 picks is going to be
that guy.
Going to be the guy who in the olden days would have worked on barrels. That's what a Cooper Smith did.
Okay. So this tells me on this platform that I am way higher on one certain guy than the platform is. And that's okay. I don't care. Give me all the Cooper Kupp that I need. To me, that's a screaming value in the 3rd round. I have him as a wide receiver 1. So at least in this instance, I'm going to say the gamble paid off.
All right. So Cooper Kupp goes off the board at 312. Who are you taking at 4-1?
So with my second pick now, I still want that. And I'm apologize for people that are watching the whole episode, and I'm not going to be able to differentiate, but I'm also going to try to stay true to myself here. We see the 1/10 point of separation between my top 3 receivers on the board and 2/10 between the top 4. If I'm being honest with myself, the guy with the most upside here is DK Metcalf. And I believe of those 4 receivers, he has the best chance of being a wide receiver 1. And so that's the direction I'm going.
All right. So Doug double tapped running back in the beginning by taking Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. Came back around. He double taps wide receiver with Cooper Kupp and DK Metcalf. And we'll see what happens in rounds 5 and 6. So after Metcalf goes off the board, we do see a run on wide receivers. Nico Collins, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman, Malik Neighbors, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Tank Dell, Amari Cooper, George Pickens, Zay Flowers, and Keenan Allen. I'm not sure how many that was. I wasn't counting, but I'm pretty sure it's a metric buttload. I'm not sure if that's an actual phrase.
Is that an actual? Yeah, I was going to say, is that an actual measurement?
It is. It's a little less than a hogshead.
Oh wow! I grew up on a farm, and I did not know that.
I don't know if that's true. I only teach 8th grade, and as I like to say, I just need to know more than an 8th grader. Not a hard job, especially today. All they know are dances and slang. So unless you're going to hit the gritty and then tell me that those hit, I'm all right. So besides those wide receivers, you just keep focusing on what you're focusing on, Doug. We have James Cook going off the board with Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, and James Conner. At tight end, we did see a mini run of tight end. I wonder if Doug might swing a tight end at this next pick, at this turn. But we see Trey McBride, Kittle, Mark Andrews, Kincaid, and Pitts going off the board. And only one quarterback, CJ Stroud. So we have five QBs off the board. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tight ends. Doug is back up on the board at 5-12.
Again, I'm going to apologize for the repeats here, but there is a top 5 tight end on my board still available. I might as well get them now, especially with a bunch of receivers that I still like. And since I get to make the pick at the turn, I'm going to be able to get the third receiver of my choice if that's where I go. And I'm not entirely sure that's where I'm going to go, because having done 2 drafts already on this platform, I'm pretty sure I can get a third, fourth receiver that I like in the next round. So Evan Ingram's going to be the pick. I'm not fooled by the 100 plus catches he had last year. I know part of that was Christian Kirk being gone toward the end, and some of the injuries they had in Jacksonville. But he probably will push for 85, 90 catches. And with any bump in end zone targets, red zone targets, there's a good chance he'll live up to this draft position.
All right, so Evan Ingram is the pick at 5-12. Now you get your second half of your turn.
So, having learned from my previous experience, I'm kidding. So, JJ, I know you're not as big of a fan of this guy as I am. I'll keep singing the same song here. If there's going to be one guy outside of the recognized top 5 quarterbacks that breaks fantasy this year, it's going to be Anthony Richardson, and especially with this build and given what I think is going to be available to me at receiver in the 7th and 8th turn, I'm going Anthony Richardson.
All right. So out of the blue, I love that we did a quarterback, tight end turn in the 5th and 6th rounds. We now have a pretty good roster building up. We have Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley at running back. We have Cooper Kupp and DK Metcalf at wide receiver. We have Evan Ingram as your tight end and Anthony Richardson as your QB. You right now have every rushing touchdown that's going to happen in Indianapolis. So that is I love that stack because you're kind of guaranteed everything there. So looking at the board, I know you're going to come back around. You said you're going to take wide receivers. So let's talk about the wide receivers who have come off since you made the Anthony Richardson pick. We have T. Higgins, Xavier Worthy, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Scary Terry McLaurin, Rashee Rice, Rome Odunze, and Calvin Ridley. I know 2 of those names are guys you like, so we'll see what you're going to do. Quarterback-wise, we did see 4 go off the board, so you might have started a little run with Burrow, Prescott, Love, and Murray. At running back, the most drafted position in these past 2 rounds, we see David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, Tony Pollard, Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, and Zamir White. Only tight end who came off was Brock Bowers. And we are going to wait and see who Doug is going to take. Now, he had highlighted Aaron Jones, and when he started to say it's a player that I don't like, I was like, did he listen to the Rider Dynasty podcast last week? And we were sullying Tootsie Pop, Rachel Wolford, our friend, one of her favorite players in Minnesota. She's so happy for Aaron Jones this year. And that nasty man, Joe Harlow, made her sad. And I don't know why he would besmirch Aaron Jones. But for a point when you were saying that this player is somebody I don't believe in, I really thought you were going to pick Aaron Jones. That was going to surprise me a lot, Doug, because it's not the Doug I know.
Yeah, but I don't besmirch.
No besmirching.
All right.
Bothered and bewildered.
I don't quite know where I'm going with my second pick here yet, but it should be obvious where I'm going with my first pick.
It's obvious.
It's obvious. This would be a dream scenario to be able to get what I believe are 3 wide receiver ones on their team, or at least in Kupp's. Let's call Kupp at worst a 1B. Okay, let's say he's a 1B. I don't think, and I believe, yeah. So I have the targets here as well. I have my worst starting receiver is going to push for 130 targets if I'm correct. That's my worst, JJ. And I didn't draft receiver in the first 2 rounds. So opportunity. If you are not aware, and if you are just listening, he has selected Deontay Johnson. So where am I going to go with the next pick? I am going to figure that out as we are on the clock here. So,
which is how we normally figure these picks out.
You're on fire, man. You are on fire.
Oh, yes. En fuego, my friend.
All right. So I am a bit torn here. I do want to invest in JSN at some point this year. I don't think this is the build or the time. I would like to get another running back I feel good about.
Okay.
And this in a Taylor Barkley build, I don't need to feel good about him for very much, but if there's a lead back that I think can contribute over the second half of the season, maybe he ends up being my flex. I don't know. I still like what's going to be available to me a receiver at the next turn. So this is kind of a slightly long-winded way of saying that I'm going to dip down my board and I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks.
Oh, I like when you keep it fresh between us, my friend. You surprised me.
I am not expecting Jonathan Brooks to be productive in the first half of the season. I do think there's a chance that he is a workhorse in the second half of the season. And now I can pretty much ignore running back unless there's just a screaming value. Maybe I go with a Blake Corum here in a couple picks. I don't know, but I can't imagine spending too many more picks at running back.
All right. So after hitting Deontay Johnson and Jordan Brooks at the 7-8 turn, we do see a few running backs go off, not many. Nick Chubb, Zach Moss, Austin Eckler, Jaylen Warren, and Devin Singletary. Wide receivers who went off the board: Jaden Reed, Ladd McConkey, Jordan Addison, Marquise Brown, Keon Coleman, Christian Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, Brian Thomas Jr., and Jackson, can't say that name, Smith Najigba. Tight ends who came off the board were David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, and TJ Hawkinson, and Caleb Williams, Purdy, Tua, and Jared Goff are the quarterbacks who come off the board. So looking at the build so far that Doug has put together, we have Richardson at QB, Barkley and Taylor at running back, Kupp, Metcalf, and Deontay Johnson at wide receiver. We have Evan Ingram at tight end. Right now, we have Jonathan Brooks in as his flex, though I'm sure we're going to sub him out in the first weeks for whoever Doug drafts next. But this is a very good build for going running back first. So one of the things that enabled Doug to do that is his belief in his rankings. He believes in Deontay Johnson. He believes in Cooper Kupp. And his beliefs aren't based upon a whim. They're not something he just thought of out of the blue and wrote down, right? Doug has been doing this for many years, and he's done it successfully. So that's why you should pay attention and go to FF today. Check out Doug's big board. He's releasing updates constantly, different versions. So whatever type of draft you're going into, print out a big board, slap it, copy and paste it into a Google Sheet. Do what you need to do, but get that big board and dominate your draft.
I will say, though, you don't have to slap it, caress it, be gentle with it. It is going to provide you success and hopefully money. So be gentle with it. Don't slap the big board. Just be nice to it.
Wow, that got awkward in a hurry. Not even sure what to say. I'm trying to quote Belle Biv DeVoe. Smack it up, flip it, rub it down all over. That's for people who of a certain age. Probably people who are celebrating National Senior Citizens Day.
That's right, and not pulling their hamstrings.
Oh, they might have pulled their hamstrings every time I try to get down to either
after I told him not to caress the big board, right?
Boys to men. You really shouldn't caress anything on your computer. It's kind of
creepy.
Wow. Most people don't disinfect their phones, their computer keyboards. Seriously, right now, you know what? Pause this. Go get a Clorox wipe down your stuff. Do your remotes in your house. Remotes are filthy. This has been your helpful, handy tips from JJ, who's running out of things to say an hour and 40 minutes into a podcast.
All right.
You know, I don't really know how some people do 3 and 4 hour podcasts or be a radio host. You would all know way too much about me. Doug, are you ready to make your pick at 9-12?
I am. I actually got my next 2 picks queued up because you do such a good job of filling. Okay, so I went off the board a little bit, partially because I think Josh Downs is going to be available at in the next turn picks. I'm going to show a little bit of faith in Bo Nix, but I'm going to show a little bit of faith in Cortland Sutton because I think he's the clear number one in Denver. I shouldn't need him to be a stud for me. I better not need him to be a stud for me, but I think he's going to be an effective early season guy to fill the flex spot until Jonathan Brooks is ready.
I love that pick.
And then I dipped down, and I told you that I probably don't need to go running back again unless I absolutely have to. I want to make a point here with Blake Corum. I said this in one of the previous draft executions here. Kyren Williams is the man for LA right now. That I don't think that's in question. But I think we can pretty much assume, based on Kyren Williams' history, that he's going to miss multiple games. I firmly believe that Corum will be ranked as an RB1 in those weeks. Now, if you're telling me my start is RB4, RB5. Now, if you're telling me I can start 3 RB1s maybe in 3 or 4 weeks of the season, that's exactly what you want out of what were you, a 10th round now? That's exactly what you want out of a 10th round pick. I'm hoping for breakouts for guys like Spears and so on and so forth. But as far as pure upside, I don't think anybody left on the board brings it quite like Blake Corum does.
Absolutely. With any type of injury to Blake Corum, again, Doug's picks at the 9 and 10 turn were Cortland Sutton and Blake Corum. LA loves to rely on a single running back. Any injury to Kyren Williams leaves Blake Corum sitting in the pole position to be dominating carries. Nobody last year thought Kyren Williams, I won't say nobody, maybe there was 1 or 2 people somewhere, but nobody that I know of thought that he would dominate the carries like he did.
And JJ, let's be honest, Kyren Williams has already dealt with foot injuries. A foot issue during the preseason or during the summer. So this is all about contingent upside. It's not about, I think that Corum is going to have 10 touches in week 8. This is all about playing for Williams to miss time. Go ahead. I don't think you've selected Cortland Sutton here for me.
I did. We have wrapped all the way around.
Wow.
You are back on the clock. That's why I was pontificating myself, or bloviating, as some would say.
Oh,
I know lots of words to talk about how much I talk. I am a jabberjaw. After Blake Corum came off the board, we saw a couple more tight ends, the normal late round tight ends, Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth. Even in a 13-round draft, we're not seeing a lot of tight ends coming off the board. You can probably wait easily into pick 100 in most drafts to get your starting tight end, because once you get outside the top couple, you hit a tier where everybody's kind of the same. So Dalton Schultz, Freiermuth, and Kmet went off the board. At wide receiver, we see Jameson Williams, Curtis Samuel, Romeo Doubs, Khalil Shakir, Tyler Lockett, Jacoby Myers, and Adonai Mitchell going off. 4 quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, and Aaron Rodgers. And we have seen a few running backs, Tyjae Spears, Brian Robinson, Gus Edwards, Zeke Elliott, Trey Benson, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, and Zach Charbonnet. No, Charbonnet, I know. I know, Doug. I know.
For a teacher, you seem to be very resistant to learning.
Yes. I have a hard time sometimes learning names. And it's not that I don't want to learn your name. It's just that some names I have a hard time saying. Our friend Doug, oh my Lord. Drew, our friend Drew Davenport. We'll talk about his FWM. FWM sometimes have a hard time saying some fancy names, and I have a hard time pronouncing names. But not Charbonnet. I can say that. It's a beautiful name, Doug. Much like Doug. Doug Orth. That's a simple name.
Yeah, it's 8 a simple letters. Name. It's a simple name, but it's not something that just rolls off the tongue. It's not like I'm going to draft with Doug Orth. It's just Doug Orth.
It sounds more like something you step in. Was that Doug Orth?
Wow. Okay. Well, my expertise is no longer needed on this show. Apparently, I got it. Okay, I got you. All right.
All right, listen, I'm treading water here, my friend.
All right.
The worst water polo player.
We are at the 11-12 turn, if I can read correctly. Yes.
You are reading correctly, my friend.
All right. So what makes sense to me here? I thought Josh Downs would last here until this spot. Now seems like a great time to take him. That will be my 5th receiver and somebody who I believe ends up having more upside than Cortland Sutton. Okay. But at either way, though, I think I shouldn't need him, but I do think I think Sutton helps me get through that initial stretch where I'm waiting for Jonathan Brooks and Josh Downs to get back, and then maybe I can trade him off a little bit later. So Josh Downs is the first pick here.
And if that stack is hitting, you have Anthony Richardson with Josh Downs.
And I'll tell you what, I'm glad you pointed that out. I don't think about stacking. I really don't. It is just because I have a huge belief in the Colts offense that this is happening the way it is happening. And so then we're looking at now. I have 5 receivers. I believe I have 4 running backs, tight end and quarterback. McLaughlin's looking at me on the board. I don't know when I'm going to play him. I don't know that he has the kind of contingent upside that I was talking about with Corum. I may end up going for, you know what, I'm going to go down a little board a little bit here, and I'm going to go Chuba Hubbard.
Huh.
And the reason being for that is now, this was not something I was planning on, but now you're telling me I should have Carolina's running game to go along with everybody else. Now I shouldn't have to wait for Brooks to come back. Whenever he's ready, I just make the transition. So might as well make a strength even more of a strength.
All right. I love that. He has wrapped up the Carolina rushing attack. He has wrapped up the Indy rushing attack by taking Chuba Hubbard to go with Jonathan Brooks. We see then it's coming around. Doug is up with his final pick. We have seen Dobbins come off the board, Dowdle, Jalen Wright, Ty Chandler, Tyler Algier, and Antonio Gibson. I don't think we're going running back, though, so that doesn't affect him. We did see Josh Palmer, Jerry Jeudy, Xavier Legette, Big Mike Williams, Rashid Shaheed, Gabe Davis, Jalen Polk, Brandon Cooks, Adam Thielen off the board. Stafford, Cousins, Mayfield, and Watson. And then Musgrave, Taysom Hill, and Isaiah Likely.
I'm going to go ahead and make my final pick here. Because
and your final pick is?
I'm not going to cross off any more names here. I believe I saw Rashid Shaheed go, right?
Rashid Shaheed has been drafted.
Yes. I'm pretty sure Darnell Mooney has not.
Darnell Mooney has not been drafted.
And I would it came down to a couple guys. Dontavian Wicks, just to try to play that Green Bay receiver roulette. But Darnell Mooney really doesn't need that much to happen in his favor. To have a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 kind of season. And so I'm not expecting a Drake London injury. I'm not expecting a Kyle Pitts injury, but Kirk Cousins doesn't mind going deep either. And I don't think there's much question that Darnell Mooney is the deep threat in Atlanta now. We've already seen what he can do if he is the number 1 guy, which he's not, but we've already seen what he can do as the number 1. So this is somewhat contingent upside, but this is also spike week potential as well. And I'm not sure there's too many other guys left on the board right now that can offer the potential for a 20-point week, maybe 2 or 3 times during the course of the year.
All right. So to finish up this draft from the 12th slot, we have a QB Anthony Richardson. Our 2 running backs are Barkley and Taylor. 3 receivers are Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf, and Deontay Johnson with Evan Ingram at tight end. We have Jonathan Brooks as our flex once he's healthy, Cortland Sutton until then. Then we have Blake Corum, Josh Downs, Chuba Hubbard, and Darnell Mooney. Another solid draft. Doug, we did it. We did 3 drafts in 2 hours. It feels like every bit of 2 hours. Thank you for those of you who have tuned in this whole time. Hopefully you haven't crashed your car or fallen asleep on your couch. But it is time for tags to say, so we can say goodbye and let you know where you can find us. And I don't know. That's about it. Doug?
Yeah. FF Today is where you find all my written work right now. And I'm 6 big boards into 6 of 10 big boards into my month of big boards. So next one that's coming out should be the half point PPR. I would imagine that's either going to hit the site tomorrow or Friday. And interestingly enough, I guess I'm going to participate in a half point PPR mock draft that Scott Engel is going to be putting up on CBS Sportsline, I think. So that'll be tomorrow. So that's one of the reasons why the half point PPR big board is going to be the next one out. So,
all right, I'm at JJ Wenner on X. Thank you to Doug for all of his work on this pod. Make sure you tune in on Thursday night to the Rider Dynasty podcast, where we talk undervalued wide receivers and tight ends. And then come back here next week where we have special guests from MB Fantasy Life, our friend Jorge. Man, I'm looking forward to that. So thank you for tuning in. And remember, when in doubt, go all out. Boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.